All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
Man, the Jays fans are pissed. Jays fans are kind of like, let's go drink a beer and hang out. And I don't put a lot of stake into Twitter, but just seeing some of the remarks, they are legit
angry.
Pissed.
Yes.
And everyone wants to trade Vladdy. Like, that's the guy. He's the guy I want to run out.
Vladdy is definitely the whipping boy right now in Toronto. Among others, it's
Right.
not 100% in favor or going against Vladdy, but Vladdy's got to wear it. You know, Vladdy had a down season. Vladdy's got to mature. He's got to be a leader. He's got to get better. He's got to find a clutch gene. Like, there's a number of things that can apply to Vladdy. John Schneider's taking heat. That front office is taking heat.
Wow. I mean, did Berrios stop short? Like, he was like, yeah, I would have liked to play, but they took me out.
Yeah.
Like, I just wish there was some honesty. Like, I just wish he could have said, I can't believe they pulled me out of that game. Like, just all of these guys in all of the sports, I think they have this thing where they want to keep it cool and they don't want to say anything to kind of rock the boat. But it's like some honesty would be really appreciated by everybody. I think one of the Jays came out and said,
Whit Merrifield.
He was like, we were all surprised when he came out of the game. But like Berrios just say, I can't believe they pulled me. That's what I would say.
Yeah, exactly. I would really appreciate that. But to your point, Berrios has got a lot of term left, and he's coming back, and he's got to work with Schneider and Atkins.
You brought up the term. That is one of the crazier elements of what happened. You gave that guy $140 million, and you only trusted him with 3 innings.
Well,
that in itself is insane.
I was thinking about this morning. Isn't that why, and correct me if I'm wrong, in all sports, if this was a Tuesday in, for hockey, November, like for baseball, if this was, in June or July, you're like, okay, load management, you're managing guys because it's a long season, it's a grind. In the playoffs, this is why people play. You play a sport. You don't grow up playing road hockey or baseball. You play to play in the World Series. You play to play in the Stanley Cup final. You don't play for a January game or a July game. So these guys are wired. Pro athletes are wired different. Guys, like, if my arm falls off, I'm still going to try.
I think what you're trying to say is if there's any type of load management stuff, it was for that day.
That moment.
Yeah, the build up for that.
And
it goes the opposite way in the playoffs. 47 pitches. And it wasn't even about the pitches because it didn't matter if he had thrown 70, if he had thrown 20. It was about the situation that had been baked in, right? Like, it had already been determined if he loses anything to anyone second time through the order, he comes out. And it's not like he was in a jam. He walked one batter. There was a guy on first base. Yeah. It wasn't bases loaded and he was throwing wild pitches and he was a mess
you
and
could
freaking
tell,
out.
Read his body language.
No, it was not even close. But they had Kikuchi warming up basically in the second inning. Like, they were fully aware of what their plan was going to be and they were fully committed to it. And Whit Merrifield did say, I saw Mitch Bannon tweeted this out. And Whit's, I think, got a mutual option. I want to say it's a player, but also club option. So Whit's gone. Like, Whit Merrifield knows he's not coming back. And asked about the Berrios situation. He said, I hated it, frankly. It's not what cost us the game, but it's the kind of baseball decisions that are taking away from managers in baseball at this stage of the game, end quote. And he's right. He's speaking for anybody. But I don't care if you're the biggest analytic, driven fan in the world. If you love data-based decisions, if you are Shapiro and or Atkins or the analytical department that made that decision, he's right. And we're really getting off the path here quick, but this is why I don't want a robotic strike zone. This is why I don't want robots. The game is already, you need the human element in sport. You need feel, you need people, you need the acceptance that, you know what, I'm going to change my mind or I'm going to have a gut feeling here and I'm going to make a call. And the crazy thing about that is it wasn't even a gut feeling. He'd thrown 47 electric pitches.
Buddy, I don't know.
Like, he was a monster.
I don't know what you feel about end-of-the-year pressers or what you want to hear, but I think the question has to be asked. And by the way, let's not forget they scored 0 runs. So
that's the problem of the season.
Yes,
right.
Like we can freak out about the Berrios thing because it's just it's almost like the secondary story because they could not score a run.
Yep.
So we got to get pissed and we got to yell and scream about Berrios coming out. But the question has to be asked. Like, I want to know whose decision it was. Like, I want to know who said to Schneider, if that's the case. Like, is it Ross Atkins that said to him, he's coming out after 3 and that's it? Or did Schneider himself discuss it? I want to know whose decision it was.
You're never going to get that answer.
Why?
Because a large part of a manager's role in 2023 is to take the bullets.
Yeah.
Then that's a joke, because it's a fair question to say, who pulled the trigger on the decision? That's all I want to know as a fan.
I think Schneider gave you the answer after the game. Let's play this clip, because when I heard him saying it after the game, I was thinking,
It was fishy.
man, this may cause him some problems.
You smelled a rat?
Well, because of, again, a big part of, like, the manager does not have autonomy anymore.
Right.
They don't when it comes to decisions like what we saw yesterday, when it comes to filling out your lineup, when it comes to situations with your bullpen, how many pitches you're going to allow a guy to have. All that kind of stuff is predetermined, and it's the front office that makes those calls. But generally, in 2023, the manager has to go out and say, it's on me. I'll take the heat. I'm the guy. I'm the one that has to speak every single day, and I represent everybody behind me.
Yeah.
Here's how Schneider answered the Berrios to Kikuchi situation after the game.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Jose was probably arguably the best stuff he's had all year, and coming into his former team and place that he's familiar with, it was it's tough to watch it unfold a little bit. But at the same time, I think that when you're so diligent with your work and you trust the people that you're working with and the people that you're kind of going to battle with, both on the field and off, you just try to make the best decision that you can for the guys that are on the field to win.
So 2 things stick out to me.
Yeah.
One, he says it was a tough situation to watch, as if he didn't pull him.
Yeah, like he was
as if Atkins went out there.
I was watching.
I couldn't believe it. I was watching. I was up on the top step. I couldn't believe it.
The other glaring statement was the best stuff he's had all year.
Yes, maybe the best he's had all year was electric. And then he also says you got to trust the people on the field and off the field. And the off the field, I think that's what we're talking about, is Atkins, Shapiro, and the way that front offices operate. And this is not unique to Toronto. I think every team in baseball does it now in 2020.
I just want to know the guy that pulled the trigger on it. If it wasn't Ross, if it was some pencil neck that just works behind the scenes and said, "This is what you got." I want to see him. I want him to go out in front of the podium and talk about it.
I don't think is Ross Atkins the guy who's the analytics team, or he just gets the report from the analytics team. So it is somebody who is data driven that goes, numbers suggest this is what's happening.
Right.
Hands the report to Ross. Ross hands the report to Schneider.
I know some NHL coaches who got reports and won a lot. And the report would come into the coach's office, and one of them would look at it and hand it to the other one, and they went like this. And then they went like that, and then they went like this, and then it was in the garbage. And then they just went out and won games.
You don't want to be, if that person's handing you the report and you're literally...
Grappler, by the way, get me another lineup.
Yeah, we're going to need a lineup in here.
But if you take it from the analytics person and you literally put it in the garbage in front of them, that's not a good sign.
No, they waited till the door was closed, and then it was
thing is,
gone.
I believe in it. It's just I'm come back to my argument. All year you're preparing. Sometimes it's like that guy, he's going to jam through. Mm-hmm. Is it Schilling that had the ankle?
The bloody sock. Yep.
Regardless of what you think of Kurt Schilling,
no, but he was a battler. Yeah, exactly. It was like, we're going to let this guy pitch.
The analytics would have pulled him 2 innings prior.
Listen, analytics are there to help you make a decision, not to make the decision for you.
Right.
Like, you don't send an email in saying, like, Berrios is coming out, Kikuchi's got to go in. And it completely sucks the life out of a clubhouse. And we are bearing the lead. The offense was horrible again yesterday. They made a lot of terrible decisions at the plate, on the bases. It's been an ongoing issue all season. But I'm really curious to see what happens here in the offseason, not only from a team perspective, but also, how the fans react to it. We're going into stage 2 of renovations at the Rogers Center.
Yep.
Tickets are probably going to go up. The sales pitch will be internally 89 wins, made the playoffs, 3 million people went through the turnstiles. They made a lot of money. That's why, anyone calling for change and all that, like Shapiro's not going anywhere. He's not. I don't think Ross Atkins is going to go anywhere unless there's something going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. But I think the pitch will be, and I think it's a sound pitch. The team has won a lot of ball games in recent years. This year was a disappointing year. They technically went backwards, but they didn't go backwards to 69 wins. They dropped back to 89 wins. Still made the playoffs in a very difficult division. So I think Shapiro comes back. I think Atkins does. I think Schneider does. So if that's the case, and Bo and Vladdy come back, and the rotation comes back, like what are you selling as what's going to change in the future? And I think it'll be a very difficult thing for them to do in their marketing department.
You imagine, are they having a year-end presser? Is Atkins speaking?
At some point,
Shapiro.
Atkins will speak. The players will be out of here.
No, the players are gone. They're on
players are
PJs
gone.
today. But if Atkins comes out and says they did the fan base, the Seattle conversation.
Well, that guy's already
he's backpedaling like a madman.
Big
Jerry
time.
DePinto, because he realizes that was the most insane commentary ever.
It was, but
54% of the time, that's all we're going for. You should be happy with us.
Yeah.
He is
We did you a
favor.
wheeling his tires backwards today.
We did you a favor.
He went on radio this morning, and he's like, I want to relive that moment, but that moment's already gone.
Yeah. He's like, I'm really, really regretting my commentary about asking the fans.
He woke up and read
them
Twitter, and he went to 50 on the underpants scale immediately.
He was 50. He was on a Delta flight on his way to Spain.
100%. That guy was
and that's someone from PR, too, probably, that's like, do you realize how stupid that is, that kind of commentary? Do you know how ridiculous that is?
Well, that's the thing with the Jays. I think the fan base is pissed, and if you look what's trending, sometimes you got to look at what the optics are like as far as decision making. Do you want a bunch of pissed off people going to the ballpark next spring? And it's like, if it's the same kind of thing, people are like, what do you... And I know we're in the world of fire this guy, fire that guy, but sometimes optically you just have to say there's got to be some kind of change. You can't let fans run the show, because if you did...
That's not smart business.
No, it's not.
You cannot operate your
There are
business
sayings
that way.
about listening to the fans and their wants and needs, because it's ridiculous. But I don't know. You got to look at it sometimes.
And a fan base of this size is always going to be conflicted. There's always going to be two ends of the spectrum. Like, there will be fans who will say they still won 89 games, they still made the playoffs, but it fell short, but like that. And that is a sales pitch that I don't personally buy into, because they had World Series aspirations. That was
somebody
them saying
has to look at it saying, if this group, the main pieces are together, how is it possibly going to take the next step? You just going to keep believing in it?
Well, that's it. Or is it going to go back even more?
I want to hear the plan. Like, that's what I want to hear. It's like,
I want to hear whose idea it was.
Well, that's question number one.
You never get
question number two is, what is the plan moving forward? Are you satisfied? Do you believe that some of the young players took a step? You know, again, they've got question marks. Manoah, like, what's going on there?
Who knows?
Like, they
yeah.
And Vladdy was taking some heat last night because there were some people saying that he didn't really kind of own it. You know,
I didn't think he did. Now, there's an interpreter. It makes it very difficult to figure out exactly where he's at. But what the interpreter was saying was not really promising.
No,
like, kind of, hey, they were better than us. You know, what are you going to do? It's like, really? But I don't think the questioning was that forthright either. Like, it was like he got one question about getting picked off at second, and I don't even remember what his answer was. But his
answer led into, I went back up to bat and tried to make him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's
and
like,
it was like, no, what are you talking about? What about falling asleep at second base?
That's right.
He took a detour and talked about. I will say one thing. He looked kind of upset.
He did look.
His eyes looked welted up. Whatever. That doesn't mean a whole lot.
No, but I noticed that too, and I wanted he did look like he was wearing it.
Yeah,
he wasn't.
Well, because
and that is school.
I think of all the things that need to be determined moving forward is they've got to get to Vladdy. He's got to mature as a pro.
Dude, the one thing
he's got to mature. He's got to take it more seriously.
The one thing that chapped my brother's ass, and you guys know what kind of diehard he is, when he was waving to the bench to get well,
he was embarrassed.
I know, but he's like the nerve of that guy to go to the bench and say, "Get the."
Your brother would do the exact same thing though. If he got picked off, he'd be sitting there, dude. He'd double hand.
No, his exact words were, "Get your ass up and run back to the dugout and stop saying, look at the video." That drove him nuts when he was was lying on the
embarrassed.
Didn't
ground.
see
He was
that
so
head
embarrassed.
explode. The same comment. He goes, "What's he doing with the hand?"
I was freaking in the break. I think we were
In the
watching.
break, we watched the replay.
But I knew what he was doing. He knew he was out. Everyone knew he was out. And he's like, I don't care. We're wasting a challenge because I need to pretend like it's closed.
Yeah.
Because I got clipped as badly as I got clipped. But he's having a fun-loving, I think, somewhat gregarious position in terms of his approach to the game and the way he lives his life. I think it's a great thing in pro sports.
It is.
When it comes to having the attitude of why I'm going to work hard, why I still love going to the ballpark. But when the ball is in play, you got to be more serious.
And a great example is what happened 2 hours after that, what came on TV. Bryce Harper likes having a good time, but when it's go time for baseball, that guy is all business. And it's taken a while.
Yep.
He was like the young stud, regarded as the next Roy Hobbs, like Mr.
That's right.
Baseball. But you watch him now with the beard and the hair. He likes having a good time, but it's all business come game time, man. It's a big difference if you watch the two.
Being fun-loving, being always in a good mood, I think is a really good thing, especially in that sport when you got to go there every day. Being happy walking into the park, being happy on the buses, on the planes, all that kind of stuff. Around the cage, I think that's a huge asset, and I don't want to see that taken away from anybody.
And I talked about the Phillies yesterday, man. It's watching them. They look like they're in the league above the Jays. Like it looks like a different.
And yet they were a wild card team themselves.
Yes,
and
I know, but it just looks a lot different.
When
right
the
now.
ball is in play, you got to have a serious disposition.
Yeah, professionalism.
You have
about
to be ready to go.
I get that. Is there people in this market that believe and that they took a step this year, or is this a step back, or is it just even Steven? Because they went from 91 wins to 90 now to 89, correct?
Yeah, I thought it was 92,
versa.
91. No, 91, 92, 89.
Okay, yeah. So you're
Yes.
right in that.
But it's still in the same ballpark. Playoffs, 2 of those 3.
I just found it crazy, guys, how the season ended exactly the way their whole season was. It was just like stupid base running decision, couldn't hit, and it was just like a dismal.
Well, and some manager decisions or analytics.
All of it.
decisions,
Yes, that's right. It was all encompassing. It was very fitting that it was Dalton Varsho waving at a pitch outside of the zone to
3
end the
pitches
season.
that were over 100. He was fanning at it.
Like he was like, I just want to leave here. Can we get out of here? Like it was just like that third strike. He wasn't even thinking he was making contact. And it doesn't matter because it's the final out of the season, and they weren't mounting some miraculous comeback. It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But it was just 162 games of a very similar feeling, and then 2 games where it was amplified.
Yeah.
And again, I think even the most optimistic Blue Jay fan was probably expecting it to play out the way it played out, which says something. Like they 89 wins in the AL East, and you make the playoffs. There was a 22, 23-year run where you would take that every single day of the week if you're a Blue Jay fan. Like, to put it into perspective, from 94 up until 2015, that would have been the best year in 20 years.
I think the Grappler called it. Like, Grappler's not a Minnesota fan, I don't think. But he was like, they're not winning. Look at Gausman. Look, like, he had this, like, feeling about it because we all sit there and watch the team.
Well, and yet the Twins did not win a playoff series in forever and had lost 18 games
lost
in a row.
18 games in a row on game 19 against the Jays.
Yep. They get it done.
Win.
And then game 20. And now they got themselves a little heater. The Minnesota Twins have got themselves a heater. All right, Keegan Matheson will join us. Steve Phillips will join us. We'll put a bow on the season, get their takes on, what went wrong the last couple of days, what went wrong over the season, what we can expect moving forward. We got Phil Simms in a couple of hours. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm on the clock for this game tonight. I have no feel for the Thursday night.
You're not seeing the board?
Washington, Chicago. How could you?
Dude, how
it's
did
in
this
the dark.
game even land on? This is like the old Thursday schedule.
Yes, this is Al Michaels. Will be so angry tonight.
So you should have flexed this game.
Yes, to a Tuesday morning. This game is like Washington's been okay. They're 2-2. They battled with Philly last week, but Chicago's
sex
awful.
appeal to it.
Nothing. I mean, they're big markets,
Yeah.
so that alone will probably get ratings. And it's football. It's the NFL in the States.
Maybe Taylor Swift will fly in there.
I like how they're making the TV networks
give her free advertisement.
free movie advertising for Tay Swift.
You know
That's
how
when you're
much
a
that's
heavy
money?
hitter, man.
That is what the New York Post is reporting, that the NFL was requesting their TV partners give her free promotion
For
of
her
her
movie.
upcoming movie. And her movie is just of the Eras Tour.
Yeah, it's just
Like, it's not a production.
I bought tickets to the Cineplex for it.
Right.
For my daughter.
Just to see, like, different shots behind the scenes and her on stage and all that.
Yeah, it's just the tour.
And obviously the belief is, their hope is that will allow her to play the halftime show at some point.
Yeah.
Like, it's all building up towards the halftime where they know they're going to make all that money back. The thing is, not all of those networks will.
Well, what are you
Right?
talking
Like,
about? If she breaks up with Kelsey, the halftime show was already locked in this year.
Right. It's not going to be this year.
So if it's next year, she'll say, take a lap.
Possibly. Or, hey, I'm going to be right front and center. I'm not going anywhere. Right? Like, if we're not together, that's not my problem. That's a you problem. And if the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, she'll be right in front and center on everything.
Do you think he would Costanza her? I'm breaking up with you.
I could see it on his podcast. I think he's got to try to get out in front of it, possibly. But I think
I hope they end up being a power couple.
yeah, that'd be
kind of
great.
cool.
Why not? I'm not rooting against them, but I'm telling you, this is all about getting her to play the halftime show.
Wow.
And again, the interesting part of that is in the U.S., multiple networks are going to miss out.
Right.
In other words, if it's a CBS Super Bowl, why is Fox
I don't
care about? They're not going to capitalize from those ratings at halftime.
Exactly.
Or ABC or
Bring back
whatever it is.
McCartney. That'll sell him out. Wasn't it Sting, too?
Paul McCartney, Sting played one point.
Sting was awesome.
Yeah. I think Green Day's playing the Grey Cup.
I'm a huge
halftime.
fan.
That's an
I
awesome guest.
love Green Day.
Green Day's awesome.
I saw them in 1994 at Madison Square Garden. It was Christmas, it was a Christmas concert. And remember Kurt Cobain had passed away that year. Courtney Love, his wife, played in a band called Hole.
Yes.
She got booed off stage. She started saying some language that was like bad, awful. They booed her off stage. Green Day came out naked for their encore. They were buck naked on stage playing. It was there was 9 bands there. It was unbelievable.
That would be a tough one to cheer for. You'd be like, oh.
Well, the guitars were covering stuff up, but it's like they came out buck naked. But I've seen them several times. They're good.
It better not be an acoustic or maybe you're looking for that. Get some unplugged
Giant
here.
guitar.
We got a cello out here. Let's try to mix it up a little bit. All right, Keegan Matheson coming up. Steve Phillips still to come. Steve Staios will join us as well this afternoon. Who's running the show out in Ottawa, right? With former teammate of yours.
I played with him in the minors.
There you go. Good Hamilton boy. Remember he was running
guy.
the Bulldogs? I remember seeing Steve, 5-6 years ago out in Hamilton.
He's a great guy. And they, I had a little chat with him the other night. I think they're quite happy. I met Michael Andlauer as well.
Yeah.
Just down to earth.
Look at you just shaking hands.
Oh, you
and
should have
kissing
seen
babies.
me just in Halifax.
Oh, yeah. Think we can get Steve to say the word playoffs on
When's
the
Steve
show?
coming on? 5 o'clock?
I think he's in the 6 p.m. hour.
Well, you
actually.
tore up your.
I'm not
missive.
going to be here.
You're going to miss out on
You
that.
got to ask him. The first question you have to ask him is, tell me about O-Dog stealing your truck at a gas station in Muskoka.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. I remember you mentioning that story.
Just see what he said.
That was Steve Staios. Now he's running the shop in Ottawa. Okay, we'll get an answer on that. So Steve Staios coming up. The Leafs are in action tonight on TSN4, on TSN Radio as well. We'll tee that up throughout the afternoon. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Catch up with our buddy Keegan Matheson in a moment. He was in the room, postgame, yesterday. Steve Phillips still to come. Steve Staios of the Ottawa Senators. Phil Simms will join us. We got Luke on the show today? Yeah, I guess so. I wasn't even paying attention to the fact that we got to make picks tonight.
Oh, Luke will be all.
Week 5 in the NFL, absolutely.
The Seahawks,
Yeah.
they're rolling.
He had the turtleneck going on Jay the other night.
Did he?
Yeah. The turtleneck, I don't know where it is in the swing of things. Like turtlenecks,
He can pull it off because he's got a good body and he's like
him and
tall
Jay
and
too.
good looking.
Two of them are like 7 feet tall.
Yeah, they're like
You
tall.
rock it, turtleneck. Yeah, you got to be
Dude,
kind
if
of long
Carrie
and
ever
lean.
comes and drops the turtleneck off in my dressing room, I will light it on fire. Right?
Yeah,
Me too. I can't pull it off.
if
I
you're
got a fat face. I can't
If
do
you're
it.
stout, turtlenecks don't go well.
It makes you look like Tommy Boy immediately.
It accentuates some features that you do
Yeah,
not
you
want
don't
to
want
accentuate.
to see
Like if you do a look down
Oh
on the
yeah,
phone.
like if you put your neck back like this, it's like your whole face is hanging over your chest. You
Yeah.
look like a pig.
You're in, the,
Yeah,
you're in the ocean and there's basically the Coast Guard's trying to pick you up and they're just
Yeah.
throwing a turtleneck
it's
at
not
you.
good.
Just throw that thing on and float into shore if you can.
Yeah. I don't care.
So anyway, Luke's coming up in an hour, and you got the Washington Commanders, who I believe their new owner is not committed to that name. Because remember, obviously they had the former name for a long time, and then they went as the Washington football team for a couple of years,
which I kind of liked.
It was
defiant.
It was very.
It was like, if you're going to make a bunch of noise about all of that, then we'll be defiant.
We're going to go Washington football team.
The football team.
Yeah, now they've got a new owner in there, and I get the impression, I thought I read that online, that maybe he's not so.
I don't like that name.
I don't love the Commanders either, although I guess it's a military thing. You're in Washington. But I've never heard of an owner coming in and saying, I don't like the name.
It's kind of cool, though. It's like, I bought the team, I'm going to rename it.
I guess, but like using Toronto as an example, when Bell and Rogers bought in, imagine they were like, Maple Leafs just aren't going to fly.
Yeah,
we don't like that name anymore. We're going to change it. But
that name isn't like, it's got 100 years of
lot of
tradition.
history where Commanders
Commanders
clearly doesn't.
Like, that was a mail-in. Who knows? Like, how did they name them?
I want to say it was a fan vote. It was a combination of
fan vote and all of that. So it's for me, there's no tradition. There's no loyalty to it. You bring a new owner in, new merchandise, new everything.
Mm-hmm.
You got to come with the heater, Dean, though. It's got to click. It's got to be dynamite right off the hop.
You can't replace it with a brutal name.
I thought Seattle Kraken is strong.
I got to be honest, I'm coming around on
You didn't
Kraken.
like it early on.
At first, I was like, what is this? Like, I like the uniform. I thought it was
the jerseys
cool.
are awesome. The building's amazing. And I think that the name is strong.
Yeah, I'm starting to come around on Kraken. My initial reaction was,
let's take OverDrive out to Seattle this year and do a Kraken game. We'll do the show and do the game.
I would love that.
Maybe catch a Seahawks game, right?
With Luke will be on the show.
We could bring Luke out. That would be phenomenal.
He could wear a turtleneck out there.
Yes, he probably wears his own jersey.
I bet you Keegan. He does a
Keegan would love Seattle. I'll bet you Keegan.
Keegan wouldn't wear a turtleneck.
No, Keegan's a man of class, man. He's got styles. I'll bet you he's cruising down Ossington every once in a while in a turtleneck. I guarantee it. There's Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. How many turtlenecks do you have in your repertoire?
I tell you what, guys, I tend to go the other way. Because since I've got this beard, if I wear a turtleneck with the beard, and I'm already a bigger guy, I got no neck. The neck disappears. So I'm more of a couple buttons open man. Try to create the illusion that I've got a bit of a neck going on here, but I can't eliminate the neck. Then I'm toast.
Yeah, that's a bit of a concern. Yeah, and that with the turtleneck, that basically puts an end to any neck. You don't want to be walking around without any neck. Yeah. That's not.
When you go 2 or 3 buttons down, do you got the Tom Selleck chest hair popping out? Is that your move?
Yeah, you need a bit of that. You need the chest hair and the gold chain look on. I need some ventilation. I need some airflow here, fellas. I chose the wrong sport to cover for a man that doesn't like heat. So you need a little bit of airflow.
Okay, we're cool with that. And you were in the clubhouse yesterday, and I guess we'll ask you to give us a vibe check. Like, what were the players? What kind of mood swings were we dealing with? What kind of commentary, more off the record, was being handed out? What were you picking up from the players and the staff in the clubhouse yesterday?
It's a very specific type of frustration, guys. It's not the angry throwing things frustration that you might get after a Game 7 or a real close one. It's the long exhale, staring a million miles into the distance frustration of losing the same way in the big moments. I keep picturing Dennis Green wearing that Cardinals hat and saying the Bears are who we thought they were. The Blue Jays are who we said they were all season long. And losing that way after saying all season that it will turn around, the luck will change, the balls will drop. It did not. The balls did not drop. And they lost for the same reasons we've talked about all season long. And that leads to a very specific, very annoyed frustration, because the same thing kept happening. And if you do that for a few weeks, sure, you get out of it. But if you do that for 164 games, the frustration there is real, and it's a very worrying question of where you go from here.
Berrios coming out of the game really blew up Twitter, and I was telling Hayes and Noodles off the top, like at the end of the year presser, and Hayes said this would never happen. I want to know who pulled the trigger on that transaction. Like, I want to know who said he's coming out after 3 no matter what. Do you have an idea who that would be, and will we ever find that out?
We won't find that out, and
Why?
that is the design of the modern front office. You know, it's the example I used earlier is if 25 people helped me write my story and there's something wrong with it, well, it's not my fault. It was a group decision. It was a group effort. It is like everything in baseball now. I know that John Schneider ends up with his name trending on Twitter and he takes the heat. That's kind of part of what a manager's job is now, is taking those questions for decisions that are made by a room full of 15 or 20 people. Some of those are coaches. John Schneider's in that room, obviously. But you've got your analytics guys in there. You've got your front office in there. And the manager, sometimes during the season, is an old-school manager. He can go and do what he wants. But in a big moment like that, evidently, it's something that was talked about as a team, as an organization. And this is when, it's certainly a question. I'd love to find out, and I hope we can. But it's one where I would bet my last dollar it was a group decision. It was something where we liked the numbers, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where the frustration lies. There have to be times where this can't be fun for John Schneider either, when after a loss like that, A, he's stuck looking at me for the 164th game in a row, and B, he has to answer for a question, for a decision that is made by a group, but he's the one guy on the podium.
Well, and the amazing thing is, like, if Schneider decided to put his career on the line and say, screw it, I'm not doing it, we never would have known. Right. Because no one thought Kikuchi should go in. No one was thinking this is a good idea to pull Berrios out. So if Schneider said, screw it, I don't care what we decided on last night, I'm not doing it, we never would have known that he had the stones to pull that off. Because he didn't, right? He went out, you could tell it was reluctant. And after the game, Keegan, I found his commentary quite interesting that, it almost sounded like an out-of-body experience, like he wasn't the actual guy that pulled him, because he said it was tough to watch, and Berrios had the most electric stuff he's had all year, and you got to trust who you go to work with on the field and off the field. It was like he was given tells almost at a poker table last night.
Yeah, managers have a boss, and I think the MLB manager, I think, is a misunderstood job, and it's something that even week to week, month to month, I'm trying to understand how it changes. But I think I look at it more in terms of how you would use the word manager in a normal job, at a store, at a company. The manager has a boss too, whether it's the president, it's the general manager in this case. And Schneider, you're right, post-game, that was a different tone. Of course, there were emotions, but there was a different tone to that. And as it was happening, it was so shocking to see in real time. And guys, I don't believe in rewriting history. I believe in sticking to what I thought at the time. But the first 10 things I said after that move was, what's happening? What's happening right now? And there was a lot of cursing involved in that, of course, but we keep it clean here on this family show. But it was, at the time, something that you really couldn't believe, because Jose Berrios, he has made, close to 70-plus starts with the Blue Jays. I've been at most of them. I have never seen him pitch that good. He looked fantastic last night. He was pitching with his best stuff, but he had an edge. There was a real edge to how he was pitching, and I loved how he looked. And that has to be so tough for a guy who was not only pitching in Mini, where he called home, but he just finished a bounce-back season that helped get this team where they were, and he didn't get to finish it.
Keegan, the fans are pissed. The hashtags are coming out, fire this guy, fire that guy. And then other people are saying, look, Shapiro's going to be back. That's an automatic. So was Ross Atkins. So was Schneider. Like, do you think it makes sense for the baseball team to kind of make changes to appease the fan base? And I know you can't listen to fans all the time, but to have, or is this just a situation where it's like, let them be pissed off for 2 weeks, we're bringing the band back together, and they're just going to have to deal with it?
Yeah, I sense a different energy from fans this year. And guys, I'm sure you've seen this as well.
Yeah, they're not happy.
Compared to last year, they're not happy, but it's in a different way, I feel, this year, where they are really rooted in. And there were times this year where I sensed a real struggle for fans to connect with this team, frankly, towards the end of the year. And
I guess, Keegan, what I'm asking you, that comment you just made there, what could that possibly lead to, and would that make sense?
I think a team following what fans believe in or are saying is not going to happen. I think this is when a team will get caught up in the jargon of going on with, we're going to follow our process, yada, yada, yada. But fans matter in this. They buy the tickets. They buy the $20 beers. They buy the hot dogs. This does still matter. And that anger is understandable. When you look at the logical order of people calling for firings after a season, it's tradition. We love that in sports. But I don't think Mark Shapiro is going anywhere. He's in the middle of a stadium renovation. He's got stuff that's not baseball on his table right now. Now, would he remove Ross Atkins in front of him? Is that protection? Now, does Ross Atkins get a fourth manager? Not a lot of guys get to hire a fourth manager in Major League Baseball. That's not how this works. This is also a front office, guys, that has already done the full rebrand as well. This team was an offensive team the last couple of years. They hit everything. They pivoted. They traded away from that, and it still hasn't worked. So this is being backed into a corner on multiple fronts. It's awkward. I don't know what the answer is right now, but clearly something has to be done differently.
Vladdy, that mistake, I think Hayes summed it up brilliantly on SportsCenter, where he said it was the anti-bat flip because Jose Bautista, you remember him from that moment, and it's like you say picked off at second, it's Vladdy. Like, when you look at that and you look at the player and what the organization is facing with that player moving forward, whether it's a massive contract, you have to wonder, as anybody that watches the Jays, how long will it take for him to get out of it? Brian said earlier he's got to be a more mature baseball player. Like, does that just happen, or does it ever go away? Because he looks like he's quite content out there. He always likes having a good time. How do you get away from that? I guess hitting homers.
Yeah, I will never forget that play. Guys, that's the image of him waving to the dugout. And I'm not sure if the broadcast stayed on it. He was waving for a good 15 seconds. And it was a little heartbreaking to watch because that was the play that defines this season, because it captures who the Blue Jays were, and it captures so many of those frustrations with Vladdy. Now, if you're going to have the odd play like that, but hit 45 bombs, okay, cool. You're that fun player who makes the odd brain fart and you get through it. But when you're coming off of a season with an OPS below 800, when you have underachieved again and are getting further and further away from who the MVP is, guys, this is why even in 2021, when we would have had conversations about, do you give Vladdy $400 million? Well, a team needs to know exactly who a player is before they spend that much money. I'm nervous spending $20. We're talking about hundreds of millions here. Mm-hmm. And over the last 2 years, the Blue Jays have learned a lot more, and I'm not sure all of it is good. Not sure all of it looks like 2021. And that play captured too much because Carlos Correa, Sonny Gray, they showed what great decision-making and veteran leadership looks like in that moment. Vladdy got caught with his pants down. Mm-hmm. That was bad. He wasn't expecting it, and that completely flipped the game. I would pay maybe $400 million of my own dollars to be in Bo Bichette's head at the plate when that happened.
Oh, it was absolutely absurd. It really was. And actually, Vladdy at second base was the story of the series where, eighth inning, game one, he leads off with a double and he's stuck there. Yeah. And that's basically the season in a nutshell. Bichette into Biggio into Kirk, 3 awful at-bats. And then top of the fifth in game 2, Vladdy gets picked off. I mean, there's your anti-statue, Vladdy on second base in Minnesota. Waving at people. Yes, like he's on a parade float, Santa Claus parade. All right, Keegan, we'll leave it there, man. Great stuff all season. We always love having you on, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
All right, appreciate you guys. Take care.
There it is, Keegan Matheson, MLB.com. Yeah, that's the reverse statue. Like there's Kawhi, there's Joe Carter, and Vladdy at second
lying
base.
On second, waving to get the replay.
Waving in Minnesota. That's the reverse statue.
Dude, that chat my brother's ass so bad.
Oh,
he would have come through the TV. Hey,
he said he was out by a mile.
Well, and that's the crazy thing is when it was a tough angle and the ump was on the other side of the base. So,
dude, if you're gonna wave over though, you better be safe. You better be safe.
It didn't matter.
No, it was like,
was
hey, I
waving.
know I got jammed up here.
He was praying.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
praying.
It was like, miracle, please. Give me one. Please. Please let there be
The
some
baseball
glitch.
gods. He's like, give me one.
Someone, please let there be a glitch in the review process. And that was it. So, yeah, Vladdy on second in Minnesota. The complete opposite of the bat flip. The complete opposite of Kawhi Game 7.
Well, think about the sports moments. You know, the Leafs make it through the first round. Like, you know, the Tavares goal, right?
Yep.
So now, like people say, the Tavares goal, right?
Yep.
The David Ayers game, right? Like there's some things. It was 4-1, right? Like those are comments that are well known
Everyone
for me.
knows.
I've lived here 12, 13 years. Like
Everyone knows.
the 18-wheeler.
18
But there was two of them, wasn't there? Wasn't there?
Yeah, there were actually a fleet of trucks during that era, I believe. There was a backup at the
wasn't
border.
there just okay?
There was if you say just okay, most Leaf fans would know that's Randy Carlyle, James Reimer in Detroit.
But there's a 10-pack there of things. Vladdy just added to that 10-pack.
We should try to compile the list of catchphrases that you can say to a Toronto sports fan and then just walk away and they will nod at you and say, and
they know what
understand
you're talking
exactly
about.
what you mean.
So what would Dougie Gilmore's the high stick?
High stick.
The high stick, right?
Yeah, you say a high stick to a Leaf fan, they know exactly what it means.
Right.
Or the spinorama overtime goal.
Spinorama, game 1 against St. Louis. For sure. 4-1, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously.
David Ayers. You just say David Ayers.
David Ayers.
David
Everyone
Ayers,
knows.
someone will chart themselves. Like,
Yeah. David Ayers is particularly gruesome. It's a very difficult process to go through.
Yeah. So there are some moments, but there's some positive
there's-
one. John
of course.
Tavares goal. Like,
Absolutely.
is
yeah.
that John Tavares' most famous goal as a Leaf so far?
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Of this era, for sure.
right?
Yeah, for sure. The Kawhi shot, the bat flip.
Right. Like
You know,
those
there's
are
been a number of
positive
them
moments.
on the positive side, of
anyway,
course.
a guy just sent me the note saying, don't forget, like, Baltimore is on the up and up. Tampa Bay never goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think the Red Sox and the Yankees are going to be garbage for very long, probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
just
true.
a really big wasted opportunity.
I think that's, to put a bow on this, is something that also is probably bothersome for Blue Jays fans, is it really felt like somewhat of a watered-down season throughout the American League.
right.
Like, Baltimore had a really good season, not taking anything away from them, but they're very young, very raw. Minnesota, not a great team. Texas really struggled. Houston, not the juggernaut they've been. Tampa swept in the wild card round. Like, it felt like a kind of opportunity for the Blue Jays to just meet expectations. And if
Right.
they did that, they probably win 95, 97 games, maybe more than that, and they're probably still playing.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen that way. And I think most people saw this coming really since middle of May, June, where the wheels started falling off the Manoah story, and it was like, something's not right here. And yet we got to get through the full season. And that's exactly where we are. All right, Luke Wilson in studio in about 45 minutes. Steve Steos coming up with the Ottawa Senators at 6:05. Phil Simms as well this afternoon. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Luke Wilson in studio coming up. Steve Phillips will join us. Leafs in action tonight. Week 5 of the NFL. The Leafs are putting basically their NHL lineup out there. And Fraser
Good.
Mitten's going to play. I think Pontus Holmberg's going to play. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
I'm not as bullish on Holmberg as others.
Not so bullish on
I like
He's a
Pontus.
player. I think he's a player, but I just think he's, another guy. Like David Kampf is kind of serviceable and really solid in a lot of areas, but Holmberg kind of falls into that kind of like, good player.
They're going
kinda
to try him on
solid.
left wing tonight, it looks like. But
Holmberg?
Kampf is playing. They've committed
Kampf's
to.
playing.
So if Matthews, Tavares, Kampf, that's you're up the middle of the ice.
Yeah, but maybe if Holmberg could, I think what they're looking at, can Holmberg do the same as Comp for less? Maybe he can.
Well, if that's the answer, why'd they give
Kampf
David
4 years.
Kampf 4 years at $2 million or whatever it was?
Yeah, I don't know who's going to be fired up to take that on.
I don't think they want to see Pontus Holmberg surpass that quite yet, or they're anticipating.
Plus, you need
that.
more. Like honestly, regular season not a problem. I'm looking at playoff picture. Like you need depth.
That's the trade
And that's
deadline.
exactly. You're adding depth. like the Ryan O'Reillys and stuff that scare teams.
It happens every year. You look at the lineup before the season starts, and then take a look the day after the trade deadline or day before game one. It'll be
It looks different. Yeah.
3 or 4 players minimum that will turn over.
Yeah.
And even on defense, like Klingberg's not playing today. He skated though.
Said he's
I
going to
think
be ready for
back.
home opener.
He'll be ready for Wednesday. So Klingberg's going to play. Benoit's going to come out. It's going to be Riley, Brody, McCabe, Klingberg, Giordano, Liljegren, Samsonov, Wall. Like that's going to be.
And Timmins is going to be 7. You think?
Well, he's injured. I get the impression he's going to be out for a while. I think that was likely the intention, but I would think Benoit's probably going to be the 7th guy.
7 until Timmins comes back.
But you're looking at an NHL lineup more or less tonight. And Fraser Minton in the middle of the ice playing with Matthew Nyes and Calle Yarncroke. Yarncroke will make his preseason debut tonight.
Great opportunity to have a big game.
Big time. Exactly. Like you're giving him a chance to play with some guys who can make things happen. You know, Yarncroke can skate. He's defensively sound.
Yep.
Put yourself in a position where you look like a pro. That's got to be his intention tonight. It's not even about scoring a big goal or accumulating points. You have to look like you can play the part.
I just want to see some NHL rosters. Like I watched Edmonton Calgary last night. Calgary sent up like
McDavid had a goal and 3 assists, I think, last night.
I watched it online. It wasn't on TV.
He looked pretty good last night.
Yeah, 170 points or whatever.
That's what everyone's saying.
January 1, we're going to have a segment called I'm Sorry.
170 points.
It's going to be called I'm Sorry. All the things we butchered leading up that we're wrong about, I'm sorry.
That's a great idea. We will do that. All right, hour 2 coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.